Sometime during the night, I heard my little brother screaming. I hollered, "What is wrong?" And he said, "Something's outside of my tent." I said, "Yeah, it's a bear. It came to eat you. Now go to sleep." Hello and welcome back to Talk About Strange. I'm on the second part of a couple of great stories that got sent in to us that I wanted to share with you today. So I'm hoping I'm going to get these done. If not, I'll have to put them back up tomorrow. But I'm going to try to get them done tonight. You're going to really enjoy this. So in the first one, I did the short story first, and then I did our longer story. So that's what I'm going to do here again. This first short story, I mean, it's very short, is MIB, like the Men in Black. So that's going to be kind of cool. So I'm going to share that one with you, and then I'm going to follow that up by Kidnapped by Killer Sasquatches. So get ready, buckle in, and we'll get right on to that. I don't have any real updates for you. If you haven't been to our store, go check that out. The channel's doing great. We continue to grow. We're getting more subscribers or members to the channel. So that's phenomenal. Thank you guys so very much. I really appreciate that. I'm not going to make this real long because this battery's almost dead. As you know, we haven't had power for a day and a half. So this has been kind of rough here for the equipment. So what do you say we get started? I'm a 43-year-old woman. This happened back in the summer of '93. I lived in a small town in Missouri. My father was a captain in the local police department, and my mom a school teacher. My father was out night fishing with a friend, and he said dead of night looked like something turned the lights on. He saw an object with lights in the distance, but nothing else. It didn't really affect him much. Didn't tell us anything about it. Probably didn't want to scare us either. Now the weird part, for me, our home was literally the last home in city limits. Right beside it was a horse pasture and a small radio tower with a normal giant blinking red light. Never in my life have I ever seen anyone, go to that tower, not for maintenance or nada. I lived there for 19 years, but the day after my father had that experience, I went outside to get a lawnmower from the shed. It was already in the 90s, and I always tried to mow the lawn so my dad wouldn't have to do it when he got out of work. When I was in the shed, I looked out and saw a line of blacked out SUVs pull into the radio tower. This was 1993, and it was very unusual to see. So much I jumped my little butt back into the shed and watched. There was 6 men. As you may have guessed, they all were in black suits, ties, jackets, and sunglasses. Got out of the SUVs and went into the tower. They probably only stayed there for a few minutes, but I know something was seriously wrong and I shouldn't be seen. I waited until they were long gone before I came out. When I told my mom, she thought I was nothing. When I told my father, when he got home, he swore me to secrecy. During work, he had 13 eyewitness accounts come forward. They each made statements and drew pictures. This is the time that people got called crazy for this stuff. In a small town, these people knew what would happen if they came forward. My dad knew the government would be stepping in. Right after his shift, he copied all the sworn statements and took them home. The next day, he went into work and everything had disappeared. My dad has since retired, but still has those copies with his position. He never told anyone about what he'd seen, with the UFO also. So that's it. I didn't get pregnant by an alien or anything excited, just good old government cover-up UFO story. Cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, that's really wild. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there like that. People have gone through that kind of stuff back then, probably still today. I'm going to ask the question that's going to be on everybody's mind. Does your father still has those copies? Can you get any of them? We can redact them, cover the name, protect people's, name, address, anything like that. But boy, it would be great if you could send us some copies of them, email them to me or something. You can redact it out yourself, cover it up, even if you just put something like a sticky note over the names or addresses. That would be really cool. All right. Yeah, again, thank you for sending that in. Really cool story. And let's get on to our next one now. Are you guys ready for this? Kidnapped by Killer Sasquatch. Oh boy. My pen name is Randy. Please don't share my contact information. I'm a 26-year-old cosmetologist. I'm originally from California. Now I live in Texas, and I married a cowboy. Yeehaw, laugh out loud. I live on a 300-acre ranch with a lot of forest and neighboring ranches. So far, we haven't seen any Sasquatch here, and I hope it stays that way. However, I'm not kidding when I say that we've had some cow mutilations. I couldn't say what those have happened, but my husband says they're normal. I've seen them, and there's nothing normal about it, and they're disgusting. Yeah, I've seen pics. They are. I love your channel and think it's cool that you live read your stories. Although I think you should do more outdoor videos. I really enjoy the drone footage. Will you be doing more outdoor videos as time goes on? Good question. Yes, I will. Thank you for asking that. And I'm glad you enjoy that and the drone videos and stuff. I definitely want to get out and do more outdoor videos, get out to the woods when it warms up and it's not raining. So we've had a mix of either it's cold or it's raining. So we've had a few good days, but yes, I will be. Let me continue. If you don't mind, though, I'd like to share a story with you from when I was a young girl. I notice you call them Bigfoot most of the time, but my family and I know them as Sasquatches because that is what our soon-to-be friends called them. Here we go. My family and I set out on one of our annual camping trips. I was 15 at the time and basically hating almost every moment of it. I wanted to be home hanging out with my friends, not out getting bit up by mosquitoes and babysitting my 12-year-old brother. Smart-mouthed brother. Every year, our parents drug us to different forest places and campsites. I preferred the campgrounds because I sometimes met new friends, and campgrounds generally had a pool and an arcade room. I knew this trip was going to suck as soon as I seen my parents loading the tents in my father's Jeep Cherokee. Ooh, I'd love to have that Jeep Cherokee. They're nice. I begged my parents to let me stay with my friends at my friend's house, but they wouldn't hear of it. So they drug us off to God knows where, someplace in Canada though. I remember my father being super excited about it for some reason. I don't remember why. We drove for what seemed like 1,000,000 miles to get there and then set up camp. We were next to a big, beautiful lake, and by afternoon we were out on a canoe. That evening, we sat around a campfire, and my father played his guitar, and him and my mom sang songs. Thank God it wasn't in a campground. I would have died from embarrassment, laugh out loud. Oh, that's mean. That's just mean. We turned in, and I was sound asleep. He hollered back, "No, I'm serious. There's something outside of my tent." I heard my father call out to him and said, "Relax, I'm coming." He wasn't happy about it because I heard my mom scolding him, saying he is just a young boy, and my father saying, I know. I heard him stumble his way out of the tent and walking over to my brother's tent. Then it sounded like he tripped and fell. I was listening but trying to get back to sleep, thinking Dad has this covered. But then after a moment, I heard my brother say, "Dad?" with no reply. He asked again, "Dad?" Then my mom hollered out, "What are you doing? Answer him." I heard her unzip her tent, and then all of a sudden she screamed, and that made my brother start screaming. Now I was wide awake and thinking we were about to be killed. I hollered to my brother to stay in his tent and be quiet. My mother stopped screaming, and my brother was calling for them. I heard what sounded like heavy footsteps around our tents. I started thinking this is a prank, that our parents are just trying to scare us. So I said, "Ha ha, Dad, very funny. You can stop it now." I listened and heard heavy breathing and grunting. Someone or something was moving around our tents. I heard them going through our stuff. I thought this was odd. Why would Mom and Dad go this far? So I hollered out again, "Mom, tell Dad to stop. I'm really getting scared here." I called out to my brother and told him it would be okay. Dad is messing with us, but he didn't answer. I heard a muffled sound that sounded like my mom trying to scream out, but couldn't. I still thought this was some kind of a prank. My father was embarrassing and overprotective, but he is a highly trained Navy SEAL and no one messes with his family. So I decided that's it. I need to get out there and put an end to this so they can have their good laugh and I can go back to sleep. I unzipped the tent and poked my head out, and when I did, I seen something I'd never imagined was possible. My father and mother was both on their knees. My father had his hand around my mother's mouth. He looked at me and motioned me to get back in the tent. My mother was looking straight forward towards my brother's tent. I leaned out a little bit further to see what she was looking at and seen the Sasquatches. There was two was staring at my parents and one holding my brother's tent. He was still in it. There was another one rummaging through our stuff. I had all I could do not to cry out. They were huge creatures covered in long, dark brown hair, except for one. He had what looked like almost all white hair. He seemed to be in charge of the others because he kept motioning to them to do things, and they did. I seen him look at me, and I ducked back into my tent. One of them walked over to me. I sat covering my mouth because I couldn't stop crying, when all of a sudden it was like a big wind lifted my tent and me in it, with me in it, and I felt myself go up and in the air and then flying over his shoulder and smashed against his body. I started screaming for my father, and I heard him holler, "Put her down." My mother called out to my father and said, "No." I didn't know what he had done, but I heard a scuffle and then my mother crying. I thought they must have killed my father. Wow. Next thing you know, they were walking away with me still in the tent, and maybe what was a new lunch bag, or what was their new lunch bag. I was crying and thinking my little brother and my father were dead, and my mother and I would be soon. After what seemed like an eternity, I started to see light through the tent as the sun was coming up. It almost felt good to know that I might see one more sunrise. I was so uncomfortable in my position, but I was too terrified to move. I figured I must have been near his hind end because even though I was in the tent, I could smell it and it stank awful. All of a sudden, I heard a couple men holler out, "Hey, what have you got there?" When they stopped, we heard them growling and it dropped me on the ground. They hollered again. This time he said, "Hey, you son of a bitch, let them go." Followed by a barrage of gunfire that sounded like bullets were whistling past us and hitting the trees. Then I heard the most amazing sound I thought I'd never hear again. Both my parents and little brother calling out, "Help, help." They took us. Of course, I joined in. Then I heard trees smashing and a bunch of hollering and grunting as they apparently ran off into the forest. Shortly thereafter, I heard the men running down towards us, hollering, "It's going to be okay, hold tight." Someone started rolling my tent around looking for the opening. Turned out to be my dad. That was definitely the happiest moment I've ever seen him. Two men got to us and was helping us regroup. My dad was banged up, but nothing he couldn't handle. My little brother was in shock and wasn't even able to cry. He had to see a private psychologist for a while. My mother wasn't really hurt, but she was also scared out of her mind. Would you believe if I told you this was the last family trip? No. There's a shock. Yeah, I bet it was. As for me, I had an entirely different perspective on life. I learned fast to appreciate my family, and never once again did I get mad at my little brother. My parents still like to sit by the fire and play his guitar, and they sing. Only now it's in the backyard, and I join in on the singing. You might say it's improved. Laugh out loud. Just kidding. As for the two hunters, they are still on our Christmas list and very good friends with my parents. I guess my parents and them did go to the police, but nothing ever came of it. My father said the officer, or Mountie, had everything he could do not to break out laughing at them. Believe it or not, my husband and I do go camping, but we are both packing big time, if you know what I mean. Okay, well, that's my Sasquatch story. I hope you like it. I tried to use proper punctuations for you because I know you're a stickler about that. Laugh out loud, just kidding. Never going to live that down. Thank you for your channel and all the brave people that write into you. Randy. Thank you, Randy. That's an incredible story. Wow. I mean, that is incredible. I can't even imagine. And now, I hear about Sasquatches out in Canada quite a bit. I mean, there's some territory out there that there's all kinds of stories out there. You are so lucky that those hunters were out there and seen you guys getting carried off. I mean, that was just a blessing. It's incredible. I mean, really, wow. That must have been absolutely terrifying. Um, your tent being used as a lunch bag, huh? Boy, I can't even imagine. I'm so glad you guys are all right and you came out of that. It just goes to show you. I mean, your father probably face to face, had he had a chance, could have maybe made a dent, but you're just up against creatures that are unbelievably strong, and what can you do? So you guys were just very fortunate that they didn't want anything to do with the bullets flying by them. So maybe they even got hit. Who knows? But wow. All right. So that's it. Thank you so very much for joining me. I really enjoyed this story. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Make sure you give a shout out on the comments, as I know you will. And I just really appreciate you. Until next time, well, which should be soon, I will see you again real soon.